Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I am your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with the James Benham, the CEO of JB Knowledge. James taught himself to code at an early age, and that helped him spark his entrepreneurial spirit. And after his first year at Texas A&M, James and a partner founded their company, JB Knowledge. JB Knowledge is an information technology services company that specializes in application design and development. Also electronic data interchange, as well as strategy consulting, mobile solutions, and web development. So in 2018, James launched another company called TerraClaim. It's also a claims management company and also has benchmarking systems. Lastly, James is also a podcast host like myself. And not only does he host one podcast, but he hosts two. The first one is the Content Crew, and the other one is the InsurTech Geek podcast. So today we're excited to talk to James about the construction industry and how they are embracing technologies and how those things are laying out across the construction landscape. So hello, James. Welcome to the podcast today.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on. Always good to be on somebody else's podcast other than my own, and excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, it's a nice switch up, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah, it is.
Great. Well, do you mind just sharing a little bit about your background and how you got into the positions that you're in?
Sure, yeah. So I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to a high school for engineers, and so it was like if you're old enough to remember the TV series Fame, it was like Fame for nerds, and so we built a lot of software in high school, and then I went to Texas A&M, just an absolutely awesome, amazing university in College Station, Texas. And they taught me about business and accounting and got my master's in business there. And then did a couple of internships with a big five consulting firm and decided that wasn't my path. And so when I was back in college, I decided to start this company, JB Knowledge, with my dad and one of my high school classmates who was an exchange student from Argentina named Sebastian Costa. And so for 20 years, we've been building software for construction companies and insurance companies. We built a big product called SmartBid. SmartBid ended up being a pretty dominant industry player in invitation to bid. We had about a third of all projects flowing through it at one point. Sold it 3 years ago to I Square Foot Construct Connect. Kept JB Knowledge, kept all my engineers, and we built a product for certificate of insurance tracking, which is a big problem at GCs, and built a product for insurance claims management, which is a problem for larger organizations that self-insure. And then we kept doing construction technology consulting. So that's kind of the path, you know. I stayed in College Station, love living there. I'm married, 2 kids, 2 daughters, and I have like a lot of hobbies. I'm like a compulsive hobbyist. So I'm a pilot and I fly pretty much every week. All I really think about is flying. I play the guitar and piano and sing and do all that about every night and hang out with my kids, go camping every month. I mean, if it's a hobby, I like doing it. And I'm really into tech in every way, shape, and form. I got hooked, just hook, line, and sinker when I was 11 and got my hands on my first computer and started writing code and really haven't looked back since then. And I've been blessed to be surrounded by awesome people. I've got 245 employees now at JB Knowledge, and most of them are engineers, and I've got the world's best business partners. We're fully employee owned and no outside capital ever. And we've really, really focused on building great companies, and I've had a lot of fun doing it.
My goodness. When do you sleep?
Usually 5 or 6 hours. Last night was 5.5, and that was about it. It was between 12:30 and 6, and it was a short night last night. I'm on the board of regents of Texas Southern University in Houston, and down here in Houston at the Four Seasons right now for some board meetings, and just love education, and so I've been trying to help them for the last 7 months. So it's a lot of fun, but does get a little tiring. But as they say, you sleep when you die.
Maybe, right? We'll see. Well, good for you. Well, I've known you for many years, well over a decade, and I've never known you to be anything different than full of pizzazz and enthusiasm. So I'm glad you're still maintaining that same love for life and passion.
Got to, man. Life's short and then you die. I mean, it's a. I joke that I have a carpe diem complex. My wife says I have FOMO, fear of missing out, and so I just I like to go get it done and have fun doing it. And the world's full of opportunities on where you can spend your time. I try and spend it on areas I think are fun. Construction's one of those areas because it's just so rewarding. People are so amazing. Technology can have such a huge impact on safety and health and productivity and profitability that it's proven to be a worthwhile journey for the last 17 out of the 20 years that I've been really focused in a specific industry vertical. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it. And I know within the space, obviously I've been in this space a long time. I was a contractor before, but everybody knows James Benham as Mr. Tech for Construction. And so I think a lot of people look up to you for that and also look to you for direction and maybe insights into what's coming down the pike. I know you're also very well known for your annual construction technology report for the last 9 years. So, what can you share with the listeners about that report and
Yeah.
who's it for?
Yeah, we started it 9 years ago because there was really no definitive work. There wasn't a really good work from Gartner or somebody else that would usually produce industry research that we thought was good enough for the specificity of what our clients were looking for. Now again, we're kind of a weird bird as a software company because we have a media group that does the Contact Roadshow, which we do 6 of those a year, and then we have the 2 podcasts, and then we have our report. That's our media group, and then we have then we've got our development group, which is huge here. It's a couple hundred people, and then we've got our product group, and it's been really interesting when we started it because our consulting group was really trying to answer these questions like what are contractors using,
Mhm.
what are they doing, how's adoption, and it was really interesting because this is about field to see
Mhm.
through the last 9 years the explosion of mobile tech and the number of apps we had to cover, the number of mobile devices, mobile device utilization. So the real objective with the report was to give a free report out there that people could download and read and first understand market share, understand what tech they should look at, what apps are popular. And mind you, we survey thousands of companies. So it's not,
Yeah,
you see a lot of surveys and market research that are like 100 companies responding. I mean,
right.
our average is 2,000 to 3,000 every year that respond, and so it's a big enough market set that that it helps people make spending decisions. We also really dive because I have a degree in accounting and spend a lot of time looking at money. Like looking at how's money being utilized. We talk about the percentage of revenue that's spent on IT because it's a really low number in construction, and that's one of the big things that's holding us back. You got to invest before you get return. It's almost
Right.
so, and so that's part of to answer your question, what the report's about. We're trying to get people to get off of center and really recognize that technology is an investment, not an expense. They'll get their money back. They can become more profitable, and then help them identify which tools they should start with that are pretty easy to implement, that all their peers are implementing, that are delivering return for their peers.
Yeah, I love how you said, it's about the money. I think one of the things that I always come away with is that there's an X factor on those dollars. This is sacred money. It's new money. It's different money than just raising your price. I mean, you're able to leverage that multiple times and grow it rapidly when you have an ROI on a technology investment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, technology in general should all have some return allocated to it. Otherwise, there's no point in buying it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like, why would you do it? I mean,
Right.
there's no in business. There's no cool factor. There's no points assigned for style. Really, I mean,
Right. Right.
there's one scorecard in business, and it is how much cash does the business generate. Right. That's it. That is the comp. And by the way, it's not gross revenue.
Right.
A lot of contractors get like fixated on gross revenue in their building
Mhm.
volume. I'm like, it's a nice to have, but it really doesn't indicate how good of a business you are. What indicates how good of a business you are is how much cash at the end of the year do you generate every year from your activities that you can then use either for your own personal enjoyment or further investment, right? Like one of those two. But that's the whole point of a business. I mean, this is capitalism, right? We're not talking about Capunism, which is this weird hybrid, communism capitalism thing goes on in China. We're talking about capitalism, and we're here to drive profit and margin and wages, because the beautiful thing is more profitable companies tend to pay more money to their employees too, and bigger bonuses. So I mean, everybody wins, right? Everybody wins when you have profitable businesses, and low profit businesses have a harder time paying wages and paying bonuses and doing things. So there's a combination there that you got to be really aware of.
Yeah, I love that. So from the 2021 report, is there anything that is glaringly obvious that you come away with?
I'd say, well, one of the glaringly obvious things is that spending is really not materially moving north, and I would like to see it moving north faster. So that's probably a disappointing side of things, that spending just isn't budging off of center, right? Secondly, we are continuing to see a big push into mobility. That wave is not a fad. It didn't die off, right? I mean, you're seeing, but we are seeing a desire from contractors to start consolidating some of their mobile solutions. So maybe instead of using 10, they want to use 5. So you're seeing some consolidation. Of course, you're seeing consolidation in general in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But you see that too. But when you look at it, they have a desire to consolidate, but really the number of mobile apps that each company uses is still pretty high, right? They're using 5, 6, 7 mobile apps per company. So that's still been pretty popular. The popularity of mobile devices in general and of connecting the field. And I call it the difference between going paperless and going digital. 9 years ago, we had a lot of companies that were responding to the survey that were trying to go paperless. So they were really just creating scanning workflows that allowed for their field staff and office staff to keep using paper, but then scan it in and then route that digital representation of the document, which is, it's a poor substitute for truly going digital. Right? Going digital means you're going to originate digitally, you're going to log the data digitally, you're going to route and workflow that data digitally. It's never going to get turned into an image. Anytime you're routing an image, that's paperless, and it's really a 90s solution to a 2021 problem. So that's certainly something else that we saw from the report.
Yeah, it's half a step better, but it's certainly not the be all end all what you want.
It's better than routing physical paper. Okay, it is, but there's still a whole bunch of mistakes that happen on the rekeying. There's mistakes that happen on OCRing or scanning or routing. There's a lot of room for error, and that's the real problem. And you can't capture all the context you can with digital origination. So we're trying to get people moved into originating data digitally, right? Take the photo with your phone, fill out some data, auto tag it, add GPS locations, put it into structured or unstructured data that can be structured later. I mean, there's a real goal there, and it's ideally to do away with paper forms, paper plans, paper specs. I mean, those are really problematic. I mean, this industry has thrived on unstructured data, and it would be nice to structure more of the data, right? Because then we can more easily do things with it, like make better decisions, be more profitable.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. You mentioned 5 to 7 apps. It's ironic because we did a survey report a year ago also, and that was the exact number. It was between 5 and 7 apps is the average number the companies are used to collect job site data. So you're spot on with our findings as well.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and some are okay with it. I mean, hell, I use I use a lot of apps. Okay?
Yeah,
I mean, you look at my phone and you're going, "Oh God, Benham, how do you track that many apps?" I mean, I've got I don't know, a couple hundred on here, right? But the reality is, I love tying things into my phone. I mean, I really do. I just got a new washing machine from Maytag. All right, damn thing's got an app, and I never thought I'd love it, but Mike, I love the damn thing. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome because I can load clothes in there, like if you like workout clothes and that kind of stuff, but you don't want them. You want them washed the next day, so not sitting in there getting moldy. Or so I can schedule when I can load them in and go on my phone and schedule when it starts. And then the really cool thing is that there's a push notification between when they're done. I mean, I think it's important as nerds and as technologists that in our personal lives we really try to go digital, because it gives us a lot of ideas about what's possible in the work world. And that phrase is kind of consumerization of IT, right? We ideally, people, and this is happening a lot more, right? People are so digital in their personal lives. They step into work and they're going, my gosh, I'm sticking back 15 years. I mean, Mike, I drive a self-driving Cadillac, right? Like my car drives me to Houston. So why is my construction equipment still requiring manual input? I mean,
Right.
and it's affordable now. You can get a Tesla Model 3 really reasonably with great autopilot feature functionality. So why is it so cheap to get that level of automation on a personal level and so accessible, and it's not in a business environment? And that's what a lot of the students that I've taught over the last 5 years are saying is that, hey man, I'm using all these digital tools, and I go to the workforce and it's like time warp 10 years ago. And
Step back to the 80s.
yeah, it's just not, it's not cool, and they're not liking it, and that's where they're trying to push change.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. The rising generation they're in college right now and in high school. I mean, my junior high daughter just finishing up ninth grade. I mean, she's been doing online learning, and with COVID and everything else, of course, everything was digital, right? They've had school issued tablets for years now. So yeah, if you try and hand a new employee just fresh out of college or even high school a piece of paper, they're not even going to know what to do with it, right?
Yeah, it's a bit challenging. I mean, my I'm in Texas, land of the free, and so we were face to face school all year, a little different, but we my kid's school uses Google Chromebooks for everything, and
Right.
so they had to have a Chromebook. They use Google Classroom. Everything's digital. I can log in and check the assignments. I mean, total game changer. And then you step into your average company. It's like, man, where's all this centralization at, right? So it's something we got to be aware of, right? And you can't just say, I hate the thing where people are like, well, thank God I'm retiring. I don't have to deal with this. I mean, what a terrible way to approach that, right? I mean, you really got to. I think it's helpful to embrace change, not for the sake of change, but for the sake of results and productivity and profitability. The examples are aplenty.
Yeah. So for the last, so you're actually, this is your 20th year, right, at JB Knowledge? Is that right?
Just turned 20, April 16th this year. 20 years ago, I drove from my dorm room in my 1995 Ford Mustang to the Brazos County Courthouse and filed the paperwork. And it's we've managed to survive 9/11 and the '08 economic crisis and COVID and all this other garbage that easily put a lot of the gray hair on my head that I've got, and it's been quite a ride. But we just turned 20 as a company, and of course our products, Smart Compliance and TerraClaim, are a little younger than that. But yeah, it's been a fun 20 years.
Yeah. So in that, I mean, you mentioned mobility. That's the obvious one, but what else has changed in Contech in those last 2 decades for you from your seat?
Yeah, mobility, huge. I remember the first laptop I got was a year into business. The first year I just had a desktop computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we got into laptops. In general, I got into construction tech, and I think I said 17 years. It was 15 years ago. I got into insurance 17 years ago. 2006, I jumped into construct tech with Smart Bid and the bidding system, and I saw a boatload of paper. I mean, just reams and reams and reams of paper being used. A whole bunch of printing and shipping plan files, which is just dead now. So that completely went away, right? Which was good. I mean, it was like $1 billion revenue line for UPS and FedEx to print and ship plan files. I mean, it was crazy. Just think about all that waste. It's just waste. Don't feel sorry for FedEx and UPS. They're doing great. Online e-commerce has done wonderful things. They don't need to print and ship plant files for us. So certainly the disappearance from a lot of not everybody, but from a lot of people's job sites, the majority of their papers, they still use some, but not nearly as much. The advent of smartphones, right? So 2007 was when the iPhone came out, and it really wasn't the first smartphone. Don't forget about that. Like I had a Palm Pilot back in the day, and then the early stages of Android, but Apple was the first one to really nail it down and get it really right and get everybody really excited and market and sell the hell out of it. That changed. That was the year after I started SmartBid, and so we were I want to say we were one of the first 3 construction apps in the App Store, but I don't really know if that's true. I know that we were like number 1 on the list at one point of construction apps with SmartBid. And if you think about it, it was for estimators. They really didn't have to have a mobile app because they were largely at their desk. And so you've seen mobile apps become a big deal. Automation has completely changed construction. drones and sensors, right? So the miniaturization of chips, how chips have become really inexpensive, semiconductors become really inexpensive, sensors and data are really pervasive, and then 4G and then now 5G has had a massive impact on construction because now we can actually get real bandwidth to the job site fairly easily, which has a sea change of an impact on construction because now you're able to pull off a whole lot more tech, like beyond line of sight drones. Well, drones in general, like half of people we survey have drones.
Yeah.
That's a huge change. You have your own aerial fleet over the job site that you can take aerial images of anytime you want. And you can produce, photogrammetry, and you combine drones with photogrammetry. And that's a huge change as well, right? Because they're able to measure and count and do all kinds of other existing condition assessments. So all of those technologies came along. And then you have the ERP players are slowly getting in the line. It took a while. They had to do some acquisitions and bring some other players in. The big guys had to start some new companies, so you saw like Jonas and CMIC start their own equivalent cloud products. So all of that has come along pretty nicely. Guys like Coins in the UK built a new platform that's all web mobile based. And so they've really come along and they've gotten with the times. And then, of course, big thing that changed is the amount of venture capital and money flowing in to fund new ideas went up exponentially. So you have a lot more choices, almost too many choices as a contractor.
Yeah, that's why we're seeing the consolidation again, right? We're seeing them get gobbled up again.
Classic cycle of fund, innovate, create, sell, acquire, consolidate. Then now we're going to be back into the split off and start again.
So that's exciting. The drone thing is something else I've noticed too. And I remember it's been about 10 years ago. I was in a insurance claims adjuster's office, a big company, and they had developed, and it was like top secret. They had this miniature helicopter. I mean, I think they spent like $30,000 building this thing. It had like a weed eater engine on it or something. I mean, it was nuts. And it was top secret, right? To get something that could actually hover above a roof and take measurements. But it's amazing that you can order it on Amazon and have one tomorrow if you're, a 10-employee roofer in Chicago.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from your survey that half of the companies have invested in those. So that's a huge
roughly
change.
Yeah, half of the ones that we survey have invested in some type of drone. Now, many of them are underutilizing it. They're not using enough apps. They're using like the base factory apps for drones. And thankfully, DJI, who of course dominated the drone space for construction, has really got on the ball with their factory applications. But still, my personal favorite is Drone Deploy. I mean, there's a lot of really good construction drone apps out there that make a big difference.
So you mentioned, there are companies that are jumping on board, a lot of the larger ones, a lot of the ones that you've surveyed. What is the hesitancy behind the ones that still aren't jumping on board yet?
They just don't see it. I mean, when it comes down to it, and I have conversations with them, they just don't. They think that the return numbers, the ROI is fictional. They're skeptical about the ROI. They're carrying a lot of risk already, and there's already so many things that could go wrong on a job site. And I respect this. It's hard to be a contractor. There's a lot of ways to lose money, right? I mean, being a contractor is like playing a game of 1,001 ways to go bankrupt. I mean, it's challenging. It's a high risk and sometimes high reward, sometimes low reward, but it's definitely a high risk, low margin business that many people feel they have to make up on volume. And so that's pretty challenging. And so you introduce this concept of change and more than it gets really tough for them to stomach a massive change. And I respect that and understand, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating for me and everyone else in the tech sector when they cite a lot of the same old reasons. And the reality is, at the end of the day, they'll be willing. And I'm a pilot, so I like to fly. All of my neighbors at the airport are all contractors. They have really big, expensive airplanes, and they don't like spending money on tech. Now, why is that? They're willing to drop $3 million on a new King Air, which has marginal incremental value to their productivity. And they'll say it has a ton of incremental value, and it has value, but not for the dollars they have to burn to run it, operate it, buy it, acquire it, etc. And then they'll underinvest in IT, which has the opportunity to give them enough money to buy a much bigger jet.
Pay cash for the plane. Yeah,
exactly. Like you really, it's like you're putting the cart before the horse in some of these things, because you understand a plane gets you to your job site faster, and you can easily anybody can justify anything. All right.
Mhm.
If a business owner wants to justify something, if they want to lie to themselves long enough, they can do it. And one thing my dad told me to do a long time ago in business, because he's my personal mentor in business, always has been. He said, James, no matter what you do, don't lie to yourself. Like
Mhm.
he goes, just you can choose to not disclose everything to everybody else, but at the end of the day, don't lie to yourself and pretend you're profitable when you're not. Don't pretend that things are good when they're not. Don't pretend like you're a proactive investor. I've seen so many construction CEOs stand up and say, "Man, we're a proactive, tech forward company. We're going to innovate." Blah 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 blah. And you go talk to their employees, like, "Man, that guy won't even approve an iPad purchase." And
Right.
it's and it's because and then they say they really some of the more dangerous ones will make really snide comments about IT guys. And so what they do is they denigrate the IT department, and it's kind of like classic jock behavior. Look at the nerd over there. And what they do is they give everyone permission to just dog on technology, because the reality is most people are so busy and they work so hard in construction, because construction's filled with hardworking people, that they don't want a lot of them. It's a lot to ask them to change their process and rethink things. And so if you give them permission, if you give them a moral license to just deny or dog anything they new that comes up, then they'll take it, because they got a lot on their plate. And
Which is really just shooting themselves in the foot, right? I mean,
absolutely. And look, why do our margins suck? We're the bottom. We're the
right.
bottom. We're also the industry that has improved productivity the least of all industries, and we're at the bottom of margin. And so, why? Well, isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious? There are other high risk industries that make far larger margins because they've invested heavily in technology, people, and process, and they've gotten the results. It's tough because I always want to balance and walk the line of respecting the road contractors have to walk and respecting the risk they have to take. And look, the desire to not change is very strong in many. Like, the force is strong with you, Luke. Like I'm only watching The Mandalorian, which I love, and I'm not a Star Wars guy. I'm a Star Trek guy, but Mandalorian is amazing.
That's
And
pretty good.
and the force is good with some, the force is strong with some, and it's not with others.
You're in the same position that I am, where you're, technology driven, technology facing, you're trying to help.
Yep.
And it's exhausting trying to convince some of these same companies. I mean, like you, I can think of a dozen huge companies that we've been talking to for over a decade that are still in their own way on some of these things. And
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Well, it
But,
doesn't make sense when their peers have made so much more money than them,
right. Yeah.
and have reduced their risk profile so much, because there's two sides of the coin. It's becoming more productive and also becoming safer and less risky, which that's a big part of contractor losses is insurance and risk management claims. And so it's two sides of the coin. And so my hope has been for them to catch it and understand that they have to invest to get return. They have to take risk, get reward. They've got to invest in technology and people and process, and adopt, learn to experiment, but of course, walking the line with not experimenting too much, because burn your people.
Right.
Right? It's always a balancing act. And so I don't want to paint it with just gross generalizations, because every
Right.
and we do a lot of consulting with construction companies, and every single company is kind of a different grab bag, and so you just also got to respect that too.
Yeah, I think the fear of change seems to be the largest thing that we run into, and we say it all the time, and we can back it up with statistics. We rarely lose to a competitive solution. It's usually no decision or delayed decision, or you know we're going to get to it later. Something else became a priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've talked many times about the three B's of construction. What can you share about those, and how do they relate to context solutions?
Big data is really exciting. The insurance sector, which is the other half of my business that I spend a lot of time on as InsurTech, they are really learning how to leverage big data in a massive, profitable way, because they're using big data for automating underwriting and claims handling decisions, for dramatically reducing the amount of forms they ask people to fill out, because they can automatically populate the data on properties and people and equipment, and because they're using public records, and they're using data aggregation repositories. I mean, it's really impressive what is going on in InsurTech. we got to take a big lesson from them because we require way too much manual entry of stuff. I'm going to give you an itty bitty weedy little tiny example. All right, just
Okay.
one tiny example is address.
How small?
It's itty bitty, microscopic.
Okay.
It's just addresses, right? So back in the day, which was like a Wednesday, you just type a whole address in. Okay, it takes you, you know, let's say it takes you 30 seconds to really fully type a whole address in because you got to go
Right.
street number, street name, and then if you're in Utah, then go
Right.
Lord help you figuring out how that addressing system works, right? So I still can't figure out how streets are addressed in Salt Lake City. I'm told it's very logical, but I still haven't figured it out. But you still
It's
got
a grid system.
it's a grid system, but New York's grid system is easier for me than Utah's grid system. So I'm just going to say that. All right. So then you got the you got to figure you type the whole address out to city, state, zip, country, county. All right, then we end up with these zip code databases. So you type in the zip code, auto populates city, state, zip. Now, because we have ridiculously good mapping data, I mean ridiculously good, right? Like
Yeah.
amazing how good our mapping systems are. You can use the Google Maps API and you just start typing the first part of the address and then it auto completes. It cuts a 30-second transaction down to about 5.
Yep.
And that's a wonderful example of how much you can leverage big data. And that's just the little thin tiny little sliver off the top. Then when you're talking about property data, let's say you're keying in data on a property and you want to know all the details about that property, what's near that property. There's a bunch of databases you can tap into to automatically pull that data into your project systems so you don't have to manually key all this stuff in. And you can make better decisions. So big data is really, really exciting. It's a lot of potential. Also in analytics, once you start aggregating all the data across all of your different verticals, you can start making better decisions. Database decisions, not emotional decisions.
Right.
Okay. When I started looking at work comp claims, which happen a lot in construction, I found that my emotions told me one thing, that comorbidity factors like diabetic, overweight, smoker were going to contribute to a worker having a tough time recovering. And in fact, it contributed to a cost of the claim. The reality is once we started peeling through the data, their lawyer contributes as much as any other factor.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was not just the fact that they had a lawyer, which lawyer they had contributed heavily to how much that work comp claim is going to cost. And that I didn't discover that until I really started peeling through millions of records on work comp claim incidents. So that's big data. Now, BIM is there's been a lot of mandates in the UK, the level 2 mandate. There's been a lot of mandates, not a lot of mandates here in the US. But BIM continues to have the opportunity to revolutionize the way things are built and the quality that they're built in, because you want to find the mistakes before you start building. And there's no better way to clash detect and find mistakes than by doing fully coordinated multi-trade BIM. All right, so I absolutely still stand by BIM having the ability. Now I talk about blockchain, and here's the interesting thing. These are all underlying tools. So what's actually happening with blockchain is really interesting because it's being implemented in a lot of places now, but they're just not talking about it anymore.
It's all under the covers, behind the scenes, right?
All under the covers. They originally had it over the covers. They were actually using it as part of their product marketing, and everybody's like, I don't know. They just unfortunately, they immediately associated blockchain with Bitcoin,
yeah.
and that became a big problem. And so people are still using blockchain, but they're using it under the covers to accomplish the same thing without really talking about it. So it is big data, blockchain, BIM, BI is something that was like a 4th B that we do a lot of talking about, and that's just business intelligence. Really getting people used to not just analyzing data in Excel, but moving into a tool like Power BI or Tableau, because that's allowing them to make much better non-emotional decisions. And we use Metabase ourselves. It's an open source BI tool system, and we love it. It really helps us analyze our enterprise data. So that's actually the 4th B is BI. But those still should be watched. Now, blockchain, man, it's in the news all the time because they're talking about all the different cryptos, which are all on blockchains, right? It's either on Ethereum or whatever you're on. But I just don't think they're going to talk about it as much, even though it's going to be heavily used.
Interesting. Yeah, I love the way you phrase that. It's the underlying technology that's driving these things.
Yep.
And And that's back to contractors need to have confidence and trust and get on board with the rest of planet Earth, the other businesses out there that are leveraging technology to be more efficient as opposed to avoiding it or trying to, see what they can do to keep away from
Yeah,
some of those changes that are maybe uncomfortable,
pretty
but
much, man. Pretty much. I mean, that's the way it is, right?
but wildly profitable, right?
Yes, can be. Have the potential to be.
So when we talk about the word artificial intelligence, I mean, it used to be, people think of iRobot or other things. What does that mean to you when you hear AI when it comes to construction technology?
We're not in general AI. We're not there yet. That's HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Because I don't think about that. I think about the specific forms of AI, like machine learning, that are really transforming individual skills. Natural language processing, which is being used for NLP search, like Dado, or like what Pipe is doing with ripping apart spec books. So there's a lot of machine learning tools being used. SmartVid is using computer vision, which is another subset of AI. So I'm just really excited that all these little specialty areas inside of AI, like machine learning and deep learning, computer vision, and NLP, are all being utilized now at commercialized products that are mainstream. I mean, they're definitively mainstream. And so when you look at all those tools that I just mentioned, all mainstream tools, heavily adopted, people are using them every day. We're auto tagging, we're doing an index search, we're doing contextual search, we're looking for intent, and I mean, there's awesome things you can do around AI. And then of course you see like the mapping and decision making trees, like again, other parts of deep learning and machine learning being used, like spot the the robot from Boston Dynamics
Right.
is using some very specific forms of ML to get around. So exciting outcomes. The most exciting outcome from AI is that it's actually mainstream. Products are actually using it. It is real. It's not fake. It's not just a giant if-then conditional statement. It is real stuff.
What about digital printing? Are you seeing that used more widely yet or commercialized?
You mean 3D printing?
Yeah, 3D printing. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, slowly but surely. Small scale 3D printing, yes. Like even formwork contractors using it to test their formwork before they go make it. Fast Brick is one of my favorites with the Hadrian X robot out of Australia. They're getting certification. They're passing engineering tests. They're printing with blocks instead of with concrete, and they're being successful. Their government is stamping and sealing it. That's the really big hurdle for 3D printing. And you look at like Icon out of Austin. I mean, they're hell of fire. They're on fire, right? And they're 3D printing houses. So 3D printing is real. Dubai said like 25% of their buildings in the next like 4 years are going to have to be 3D printed. I mean, they're laying out like super aggressive 3D printing targets, and then Apis Core did a big 3D house 3D printing project in Russia in the middle of winter under a tent. I mean, some crazy stuff is happening with 3D printing. Most important thing in 3D printing is that government bodies are starting to approve it for people to actually live in it, which was the major step, because we started seeing 3D printing of houses out of China like 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Right.
But you're finally starting to see countries that have really tight building standards say, hey, this works. People can live in it.
Yeah, they're efficient and they're now safe. They're deemed safe.
Deemed safe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all works out.
Well, lots of great things. Obviously, you're a great advocate for construction and technology and the adoption of opportunity. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is important for people to hear and understand about construction technology and the impacts that it can have
No,
on their business?
I'll just leave you with this. Just enjoy the ride and geek out. Become a tinkerer. Go to Best Buy and buy stuff and then return it if you don't like it. I mean, just discover the love of playing with things, right? It's really part of my DNA and part of my team's DNA that we just geek out on what we do. And I ask my clients to do the same thing, right? Whatever it is you do, geek out on it. Life is too short to be boring. Life is too short to be meaningless. And the beautiful thing about improvement is I believe improvement gives purpose. It allows you to look back and see what you accomplished. Even if nobody else knows, you will always know. And that's the thing. I think as humans, we got to be in the experience business. and because no one can take those away from you, and that's what's so fun about innovating and changing and adopting technology is you can look back and you can see what you got done, and so and you got to discover the joy of being a tinkerer. I mean, when you're a kid, I mean, you break up a new Lego box, I still build Lego. I still do.
Right.
I just rebuilt all the Lego from my childhood. My daughter, my 11-year-old, I just finished like a 5,000 piece Lego piano that actually functions.
Wow.
It is still a blast to make. So just if you got to play with technology toys, or you got to go back to Lego or Connects or whatever you got to do to rediscover that inside, I encourage people to do it and just recognize that in business, the ultimate goal is to generate cash, and this is one of the things that can have such a massive impact on that.
I love that. So more on a personal level, James, what is one of your superpowers or your strengths that you feel like you really can lean on, helps drive you?
Um, I'm fairly quick at figuring things out, and that has served me well as a consultant. It's served me well as a software developer. I can generally step in and figure things out pretty quickly, and I'm a fairly quick learner. Now that's also because I just never stop learning. It's one of the reasons I love being a regent at Texas Southern, because I can help people learn. I love teaching. I love learning. Um, I I really enjoy the process of educating, and I think great companies are great teaching companies too. And so I think that's probably one of the things that I've been better at over the last 20 years. That's really helped me with my team, and has helped me to enjoy the day more and help my people to upgrade more. So I think that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy teaching, really enjoy leading our folks, and I really enjoy trying to get people excited, because motivation is this funny thing. It's sometimes it's hard to come across, and sometimes it's easy to lose. And anytime you can motivate a group, you can. No, that's what leadership is. Leadership is motivating ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And it's an important part of life and business. So I think that's probably one of the things I'm better at.
Yeah, I love that. I believe the same. I think that great leaders are people that empower others to implement their good ideas, not just to come up with all the good ones on their own, right?
Yep, exactly.
So tell me this: what's a big challenge that you've overcome in business, and how did you solve that?
Oh, well, well, I'll say this to wrap our conversation up. The biggest challenge was we were hitting the ceiling in our business several years ago, and
Mm,
we didn't have an actual methodology we followed. And so I discovered and found this methodology called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it allowed me to put a really defined way of achieving vision, traction, and health, and fixing our meetings. We have awesome meetings now. Fixing our planning, we have planning documents, we follow them. Fixing our process, we have process, and we follow it. I stopped flying by the seat of my pants. I started running our business on a process, and it was like just putting really high octane fuel in the engine. It started performing so much better. We started having so much more fun. My chief operating officer, Sebastian, and I, who's just my right hand man, started getting along a lot better. And so
mm,
that was a huge issue. We were stressed out. We were burnt out. The wheels were falling off 7 years ago, and really getting serious about implementing a process. EOS isn't the only one, but it's my favorite, eosworldwide.com. I have nothing to do with EOS. I'm not an
mm.
implementer, but it changed my life. It changed my business. It fixed the biggest business problem I had. And by the way, my personal life made it a lot better too, because I was able to not be so stressed all the time. And I was able to put a system in place and delegate and elevate and really trust my people. And so that's by far the biggest challenge we had in business that we were able to tackle with a process. And it was a lot of change and some technology and a whole lot of people, right? It was the same thing, people, process, technology. And it completely revolutionized our company.
I love that. What a great tribute, and we'll be sure to link that in the show notes so that listeners can check that out. And I'm interested personally as well.
Yeah. And hire an implementer. I hired the world's best implementer. He's an Alabama grad, Ken DeWitt. But
Hmm.
there's over 250 implementers of EOS now. Hire one, pay them the money. It's worth every penny you pay them. We made the money back tenfold. It was well worth it.
Love that. That's fantastic. So last thing. So what is one takeaway that you want the listeners to come away with from our conversation today?
Embrace change. Don't fight it. Don't embrace change for the sake of change, but embrace change for what it is, the potential to dramatically improve your life and your business.
Well said. Well, thank you, my friend. I've sure enjoyed our conversation today. Looking forward to connecting with you again in the future and maintaining this relationship on technology for construction.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you. Appreciate your business, and let's go geek out. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you to the listeners today for listening to the podcast with James and I. If you enjoyed our conversation and we're able to gain some insights and some things that you can implement in your business, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues. We also love those 5-star rating and reviews. Of course, those help us to continue to bring valuable guests like James on. Our goal is not only to help you improve in business, but in life.